Hi, my name is Darren Joseph from HJ.tax, and we're the team that seeks to demystify that sometimes confusing world of international tax. And today we have a bit of a segue. We have the honor and the privilege of speaking with Steve Maggi. Steve, would you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. Steve Maggi here. I'm an immigrant from Argentina, and I've been running my own immigration practice based in the US since 2004, so for a little while.
Okay, fantastic.
And staying on that trend about losing the rights and the privilege of being in the US, it seems to be a gray area in terms of lawful permanent residents or green card holders, how often they can travel in or stay out. So the rule of thumb that I hear is you need to enter every 6 months. Is that hard and fast, or is that a guideline? And can Customs and Border Protection override that? Could you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, this is really important, and it's hard to summarize in a short way because it all goes to intent. Intent is subjective, so you have two things going on here. You have intent, and then you have the physical numbers that you see physical presence tests and all these things all the time. How many days am I spending in each country? How does that trigger certain things, right? So for this case, going by the numbers, your intention to make and maintain US as your primary residence for the purposes of maintaining your permanent residence is more than 183 days per calendar year. So more than half the time.
Yeah.
If you're in the US more than half the time, you should be fine. And at 5 years, you're eligible for citizenship. The ironic thing about becoming a US citizen is, or by the way, if you've married someone who's a US citizen and gotten your permanent residence, you can do it after 3 years if you're still together. But the majority of people, it's 5 years. If you've maintained more than half the time physically in the US during those 5 years, my recommendation is always apply for citizenship, because ironically, if you become a citizen tomorrow, US citizen, you can leave, move any other place in the world that allows you to be there and be a US citizen for life and always move back anytime you want. And you don't have to worry about how many days, looking at your calendar, have I been there? Am I going to be stopped at by CBP when I get to JFK or wherever I'm entering? Will they question my intent? Because you already are a citizen. So that's my free take-home lesson, is become a citizen. After that, the 6 months, what it does is it demonstrates that you may have abandoned your permanent residence. So that's why the rule of thumb that you said is never be continuously out of the US for more than 6 months at a time. That being said, if you do that, let's say you spend 2 years entering for a week at a time and leaving for 5.5 months, CBP will look at your track record. They look at your previous year. Every time you enter, they go back a year. And if you've spent more than half the time, that could cause a red flag. You might be sent to secondary inspection. They will never revoke your green card right away, but they will give you a verbal warning.
Right.
So if you have a track record of 2 or 3 years where you've spent the majority of your time outside the US, you have to assess right there, do you do a re-entry permit application where you say, I have to be abroad for 1 or 2 years, you apply in advance, and you have a significant reason, like you're going to take a master's course, or somebody is violently ill, they're on the verge of death or something that will make you stay overseas for an extended time. That demonstrates your intent to return and then to install yourself again as a resident. If you don't do that, then eventually, if you don't adhere to that verbal warning, then you can have it revoked on the spot. But that verbal warning means that you're not managing your time right. And you can think about right then, and I'm sure we've seen this together with clients in common, then maybe you just renounce your green card if you are eligible to get it in the future. And this is important. Sometimes people get it through, for example, an employment-based case, but they don't qualify in any other way. They really have to hold on to that residence and that green card as much, because they won't be able to just apply again. If you leave with your spouse, for example, who's a US citizen, you move overseas for 5 years, you give up the green card, you can get a new green card within a year if you apply in the future because you're still married. The basis for qualification still exists. Then you should just give up the green card if your intent really is to not live in the US. In the meantime, you have to strike that balance and make sure that, because it's so hard to get for so many people. The worst thing is when you see somebody that just kind of doesn't care and then they end up losing it.
All right. So and that's an interesting point, an important point, that you will get a verbal warning first. You're not just going to get pulled into a room and give it to me.
I have never heard of that happening. They are supposed to let you know that you're on warning. And what that means is that if the next time you enter, you should be taking proof that you have a job, you have a place to live, everything is lined up for you to remain. And then
Right.
if that's not actually the case, that's when you need to be honest and renounce it. It's going to look a lot better in terms of your immigration history if you've voluntarily given it up and reapplied in the future than if someone took it from you. Because then what they're saying is, we don't think that you were in line with the intent that goes with this residence, and that's a black mark on your record. You don't want to have.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
And if someone wanted to reach you, what's the best way to find you?
Probably just to contact me on LinkedIn or to write me directly, SMAGGI at SMAlawyers with an S.com. The website is www.smaimmigration.com. They can also send a query through the website.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you.